Welcome to Simper Sometimes, and this is another episode of Embrace the Suck. Today, I have with us Joshua. So Joshua's going to be talking to us about the mental health that he's going through right now on recruiting duty. We're going to be talking about his page that he's created on Instagram that goes over 0311 doctrine. It talks about Marine Corps doctrine. It talks about different publications and all this different stuff. And, he had reached out to me quite a while ago. And then I started following his page, which, there's an RSCO, Major Gray, who follows it. There's an RS Sergeant Major who follows it, Norseman. So there's a lot of different people that are out there in the recruiting command that are following your page. So I thought it would be an awesome time to be able to talk about digital communication, be able to talk about why you started the page, and be able to talk about the whole purpose behind it, and also really be able to talk to you about your own mental health while you're about to hit a year on the duty, and just kind of get into that too. So without further ado, Joshua, welcome, man.
Hey, I appreciate it, Benny. I really appreciate you bringing me on the podcast. So my name is Joshua. That's my first name, but I go by Sergeant Roan. I'm an 0331 by trade. I've been in the Marine Corps for about a little over 8 years now, and I'm actually a recruiter in Recruiting Station Houston. So to some of you guys out there, it is a powerhouse RS, but nonetheless, we're still struggling just like everybody else. We're trying to get through our day-to-day life, trying to be there for our family. We're just trying to support the Marine Corps as best we can. So about the page, so one good little story for me why I started it, especially while I'm recruiting duty, is because I went through ISOC Infantry Small Unit Leaders course before I came out here, and it was PME. It wasn't something that was in my MOS roadmap per se, but it was super recommended, and I knew it was going to be a career infantry Marine. So I was like, I hit up my mass sergeant. I was like, let me do this course. I had about maybe 6 months left before I went to BRC, so I did it. But what really stuck with me about getting that page was that I had the cadre there. It was the CEO and one of the master sergeants that worked there, and he said, "Don't be like one of those motherfucking Marines who come back from recruiting duty and blame recruiting duty for them being shitty at their MOS." And that really stuck to me. It really did. So I was like, "What do you mean by that, master sergeant?" He said, just stay relevant. Don't use recruiting duty as a crutch. And he did say, hey, I served on the duty. I know how challenging it is, but there's always going to be time for you. And it stuck with me. So I made a page. And for me, who actually likes to read a lot of doctrine, I like to stay as active as I can with the infantry. I read it. I read as much as I can. I try to push it back out to the O3s out there and people who work with the infantry. Obviously, every Marine does. To keep them active. And it's a good way for me to stay active so that when I go back to the fleet and become an 0369 infantry unit leader, I can actually like train my Marines, get in the platoon, and not be looked at as that recruiter who just didn't know his job and, came back from recruiting duty with no experience.
Yeah. No, and listen, man, I want to say thank you to those Marines, to that mass sergeant, for being able to say that to you, because it's very important. And I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. It's an amazing thing that he was able to say that to you, because he was, instead of him being like, "Hey, the duty sucks, you're gonna hate your life," he was like, "Hey, listen, brother, here's some advice. Stay within your MOS, still look at publications, still stay relevant, because when you come out here, things are going to continue to adapt while you're gone, and you can't come back behind the power curve. And especially if you're looking at doing a career as an infantryman, that's very important, and that's in any career. So anybody who's listening to this, it's very important that we stay relevant in our MOS, because even motor T, man, like I'm a motor T operator. I've been a motor T operator for 13 years, but I was on recruiting duty for 4 years. And when I came back, there was a lot of things that had changed, and I was a brand new promoted sergeant. So like, I didn't know how to deal with GCSS. I didn't know how to deal with all these different programs. And now I'm a staff sergeant who's learning from younger sergeants, or brand new promoted sergeants, how to deal with these different publications and these different programs and stuff. So like, the Marine Corps is changing, which is a great thing. But we also need to make sure that as leaders that we know, hey, what's going on out there, especially in the Fleet Marine Force, because in the reserve program, while we are very important, we have time to learn things, and not much is changing. In the Fleet Marine Force, things are changing on a constant basis, so it's very important to stay relevant in your MOS and also for you to be able to also get, because it looks good on your fit rep, all those different publications that you're reading, those are all different, wickets that you're hitting on that educational piece. And, so that's awesome that you started that, man. And I'm just, again, thank you to that master who said that to you, because, it's good that he was able to just give you a positive critique before it even happened. Like, hey, man, listen, just go and do this. So now, how is it helping you with your career? How is it helping you with everything? Like, how is it helping you, like, when it comes to that?
So the page is helping me, ironically, because we're in 2022. I mean, you hear it from everywhere in recruiting. You can't just TC and AC the entire time. You have to do DCs. You have to be on social media. And the crazy thing it's kind of ironic, but especially me being in Texas, there's a lot of gung ho people out here, and they actually follow my page. And I've actually had quite a few DMs hit me up like, I found out you're a recruiter. I'm thinking about enlisting so and so. It actually gets me out there, and you never know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a bone. It could 100% be a bone for me, or
Yeah,
for another recruiter. Like at the end of the day, a bone somewhere in another state, as long as the recruiter is making missions, seeing their family, I could really give a shit. And
yeah.
that's what's helping with me, as I see that it's benefiting out in the duty is. It's still trying to stay relevant, but it's staying active for the people who are really curious about maybe wanting to do the infantry in the Marine Corps, and it's helping recruiting duty as a whole.
Oh wow. Okay. Awesome. So what kind of what did you get from your command? Your station commander, the people that within your command. Like, what are their thoughts on the page? Like, when you started it, like, what kind of feedback have you gotten from them?
So I actually run two pages. So obviously my recruiting page, and then doctrinally sound. I haven't gotten anything from like my staffing trustee. He encourages. He doesn't care. He's like, I mean, do your thing, stay active, and if it brings in business, it brings in business. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know if my command knows about it, but I'm sure they wouldn't care, because obviously, especially as it says in my bio, my ideologies don't really reflect the DoD.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as long as like I stay within that realm, I'm not telling you, hey, the Marine Corps specifically does this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
good. But I mean, if it's generating business, is it another way to prosper for the RS and the RSS? Then I don't see how they have a problem with it. But I try
Yeah.
to go
No.
back and
Yeah. I
forth.
definitely agree.
Yeah, they don't have a problem with it. I haven't heard anything really about it because, again, I haven't mentioned a whole lot. I try to mention it to people like you and like
Mm-hmm.
our Solana CEO, like Major Gray. I try to keep it to people who can influence it. Not much
Mm-hmm.
with the RS, because their purpose is like focusing on bringing in people for certain like aspects. You know how everything is right now. Like if I start throwing out there like how to specifically kill somebody, people are going to get a little deterred. So it kind of targets a specific audience.
Mm. Okay. No, yeah. And listen, I get what you're saying, man, but it's important though that, like, people know, like, hey, if I'm joining the Marine Corps, that's something that I could be doing. Or if I'm going 0311 and I'm looking for that, I'm going out of my way to look for a page like that, they know what kind of content they're getting, right? And you're also not like going on there and nothing's like blatantly like ostentatious. Like, the stuff that you're pointing out is like legitimate Marine Corps publications, and you're talking about stuff like that. So it's very important that you're doing that. So one of the things that we had talked about before we hopped on the podcast was just mental health in and of itself. You're coming up on your 1 year mark of being on the duty. How, for people who are at BRC right now, basic recruiter course, or people who are still in that MOJT cycle, like yourself, just finishing that up. Like, how does it feel to be a year through the duty? Like, how do you feel? Are you kind of figuring it out? Have you gotten your battle rhythm together? Like, what would you say so far is your mentality on the duty right now? How are you receiving it?
Well, I would say this. I actually was talking to Sergeant Major Gabarris. You've actually had him on the podcast not too long ago. He
Yes.
actually called me when I got selected. Him and the CEO called me and said congrats. And then we were talking, and then he said, we're talking about how time flies, and I was like, what, Sergeant Major, it's kind of crazy. I've actually almost been on here for a year. And then we both stopped and we're like, that's crazy. And for how annoying recruiting can be, um, time can't stop. That's one thing that you can kind of understand is time don't stop. So it does go by fast, but what you do in your time here makes it go by faster. In terms of mental health, the one thing I would tell people coming out here is you do whatever you're doing. If you're working at the gym, I don't know, you go shooting or something, continue doing what keeps you de-stressed, especially with family. Like if you go out to lunch, if you and your wife go out to lunch like every day at 1200, and keep doing that, because if you fall short of that, it's gonna throw you off psychologically. Like for me, example, for those that know me, I'm a very heavy grappler. I train jujitsu and I wrestle, and I have to. I like every morning. I know it sucks because I'll get home late and the gym starts at 6 in the morning for me. But I have to wake up at 5 because one, I need the gym. Two, no one else is gonna do it for me, and there's no other opportunity but that time. And I just have to keep doing it. But every day I am finished with it, I look back and like, I was worth it to wake up in the morning to continue doing what I've been doing before coming out here. I think for mental health, that's a big thing. Is one is a gym, but whatever is making you happy and thriving, find a way to implement that into your daily schedule.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. Because I was talking to he's a Massart, so Massart Gomez. He goes by G Man. He's on Instagram and he's a PSR. He's a 80. They're not 8412s. I think it's 8422. I think or something like that. I forget the name of it. I apologize, but he's a huge gym guy, motivational speaker, great Massart, great friend as well that I've met throughout the podcast and stuff for the past year. But me and him were talking about the other day exactly what you're talking about, and he was like, "Listen, man," he's like, he says all the time, I don't want to do it. I got to do it." And that's the motto that he lives by because he's always talking about. He's like, "Bro, like you just said, man, if I don't do it, who's gonna do it for me?" And he's a huge influence on my life since I got off recruiting duty because, hindsight's 2020. I look back on my time on recruiting duty, and bro, there was so much time that I spent drunk, or so much time that I spent at the bar, or getting food, or staying away from my family, or not coming home on time, or and it's like, but I always made the excuse, oh, I can't go to the gym. I don't have time to go to the gym. And it's like, bro, you had all the time, but you made time for other things. And that's the thing, like you're saying, like, there's no reason why you can't do a 15-minute, push-up contest in your office, or there's no why you can't like pick up a book or like for me, I've been doing audibles a lot, and that's what I started doing on like my third and fourth year of recruiting. I was like, you know what, I have to be driving back and forth to MEPS, so instead of me listening to music, let me put on an audible and let me learn about leadership, let me learn about recruiting, let me learn about fanatical prospecting, let me learn about objections, let me learn about. So now I was getting all this other knowledge while I was driving, back and forth to MEPS. And like you said, man, it's important to have a time for you to get this mental health, because especially when you're a family man and you have kids, and me and Sergeant Major Cab talked about this. It is just the idea that like everybody needs time from you. Your family needs time from you. The Marine Corps needs time from you. Your home needs time from you, everything. And but at the same time, you need time for you. So it's very important to be able to find that time and be able to make it happen. So you're getting up and going to the gym, or you're doing jujitsu, and you're incorporating that in your day. What else are you doing for mental health on the duty? Because listen, at the end of the day, Liz, I get it. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I've never been the person. But when I didn't get selected on the meritorious board, I got beat by a dude out in Texas. And the first thing I said was, that motherfucker don't even got to recruit. I was like, them motherfuckers walk in. And I'm not going to lie, I was that guy, right? But I'm sure that especially in today's day and age, that you guys are still making an honest living. You guys are still grinding your ass off. You guys are still making numbers. Like you were just saying earlier, hey, I already got 2 for the month, but I'm trying to send 2 more downrange. Like, so while all of this is going on in today's society and make Rick the way that it is, what are you doing, during your day? What's part of your battle rhythm to keep mental health as in the forefront of your mind?
One thing that's actually really been helping, which it's very cliche, maybe beating a dead horse to say, but it's trying to keep involved with my wife. She's really busy
Mm.
with school, but as long as like one thing I've been doing a lot lately is you know how your staff in CYC has mid briefs and all that. I do the same thing with my wife. I just hit her up in the middle of the day and just shoot her a message. Hey, I love you. I hope your day is going good. I'll call her and talk to her. It's a good way for me to distress from talking to an applicant who does not want any business to do with you, but talk to
Mm.
somebody who actually cares about every single day about you. And that actually helps out a lot, especially if it goes as far as like sometimes I'll go over to her work because she works at the school she goes to, and I'll bring her some flowers or I'll bring her like some chocolate. I'll just go see her. It's a good way to de-stress, just to like see somebody who actually gives a shit about your day as opposed to these applicants who really could care less whether you talk to them or not. That's one thing that I see a lot of recruiters kind of neglect too, is that they don't talk to their significant other until at the end of their day, which you should be constantly talking to them as much as you can, because especially because I have a very big luxury for me and that not a lot of recruiters have, is my wife is actually prior service. She was a Marine. Well, she's a Marine, but
Oh,
she got out last year, so she understands the bullshit I go through. But a lot of these individuals, a lot of the Marines out here, they don't have a wife like that, a significant other like that. So
yeah,
they need
yeah,
to know
very
as
true.
much, 100%, and they need to know as much as they can. So like talking to them throughout the day, one keeps them from being in that kind of like fog of war, but two, it really it makes you happy knowing you're talking to somebody who actually cares about you talking to them.
Yeah. Bro, you know what? That's a very honest thing, and and it's very awesome that you're doing that because it's very important. That shows a lot about your character and your personality as a person, right? Because it shows that you care enough about your wife. And I know that's a crazy thing that I should even say that, like you care about your wife, right? But it goes to show that like your relationship with your wife matters to you. Because even though like I deeply love my wife, I've been with my wife for 13 years, when I was on recruiting duty, man, I'll be honest. Whenever I called my wife, it was for me to bitch, moan, and complain to her. It was never to be like, "Hey, how are you?" or to see how her day was. Or by the time, like you said, when I came home from work, the first thing that I did was I either talked about how shitty my day was, or I didn't want to speak at all because I had just gotten done interviewing people all day long, and the last thing I wanted to do was talk to another individual. So kudos to you, and thanks for bringing that up because it is very important to be able to include your spouse into your day-to-day activities, and for her and just for you to be able to talk to her and be like, hey, how are you? Because especially if she's not from the area, especially if she doesn't have friends, like you're around the office all day, you're with recruiters all day, you're with Marines all day, you're meeting people she may not be, or he, whatever, which one it is. But I think that's very important that you do that, and I'm glad that you do. One suggestion I would definitely make to anybody listening is if you have not read the book, The Five Love Languages, go read it. I just recently read it, and I'm reading it again, and then I had my wife read it. And dude, it's phenomenal. I wish I had read it years ago. But it really explains to you, okay, hey, this everybody receives differently love, and if you're not speaking to somebody in the right dialect, if you're not speaking to somebody in the right language, they're not going to understand it and they're not going to receive it. So it's very important that you do that. And it'll work with school, with everything. But I just wanted to throw that out there because we got into the conversation of that, man. But so that's awesome that you're doing that with your spouse. So now your battle rhythm, what does it look like? Do you like what when you come into work? How are you using digital communication as a tool? How are you making your how are you making the most of your day?
So my battle rhythm has lately been fluctuating because I'm trying to find some things that I can tune up. But obviously we have in-briefs at 8 in the morning. So we come in at 8 in the morning, do in-briefs, talk about. We have a thing that my staff in CIC uses, which basically sits down and we just go over like what's working. So we have a board. We look over a week and just say, hey, like we need to follow up on these people. It keeps us like inactive because sometimes like we forget some people that are either down to go or people we need to process. And it's a good way for him to like be on us. And then from there, some recruiters in my office are definitely different, but what I do is I just make sure I check, what do you call it, EPBCs. So I just make sure like I don't have any new EPBCs. And then I do a quick check on my email because sometimes like I actually have a lot of influencers and staff members from like schools that email me about a lot of stuff. So which is obviously, one thing that I hear and you hear day in, day out, which definitely we'll talk about here later, is that if you're not in your schools, you're 100% fucking wrong. Uh, I'm very new at recruiting, but I realized this early on, and it's prospered for me. The schools, which is kind of weird. I have like kind of I mean, again, I'm not an expert at recruiting duty, but for those people out there who say you just need to focus on grads, well, that schools is going to prosper your grads later on. So the more you neglect your schools, the more you're going to be hurting in the grad market later on anyway. But that's obviously a topic here later on. But for me, um, I check over my emails real quick because a lot of teachers will email me about class talks and stuff, and then from there I just hit the TCs. I knock out some TCs real quick, and then from there most of the time I go to my schools. I One of my schools is a big P1 for me, so I hit it at least 2 or 3 times a week, and the school
Mm,
loves me. They love me a lot, and usually when I go there, I walk out with at least 1 or 2 appointments, uh, and that's big for me because one of the schools that I go to, which is Dobie High School, they specifically told me that I'm the only recruiter that comes in there, and they want me to continue coming in there. So I make it a personal vendetta to ensure that I'm the only recruiter going in there. So I pop my face in there more than once, which
yeah,
sometimes it's kind of bad. Some people look at it differently. That I should be teaching my whole morning, but you got to really think like if you teach in the morning, the parents are working, they don't want to talk to you.
yeah,
You also have the kids are in school, and then it's the grads are in school. So I just go see the kids in person, be in
yeah,
front of them, and then the afternoon is like all TCs for me, which has been working a
yeah,
lot lately for
yeah.
me.
Bro, and listen, I want to, let this be known as I say this, right? I am not in place of any kind of ARI or RI or RI shop. I'm not that guy. This is just my opinion, what I speak on, and what you're doing, man, is you've been on the streets for about a year, and what you're doing is you're continually refining your battle rhythm, because every single person in every AO has a different battle rhythm, and you're not wrong if you're identifying that in your AO in your specific sector that TCs don't. You've been out there for more than 90 days. You've been making TCs for more than 90 days of data. So now you've discovered, hey, you know what? TCs really aren't working for me in the morning. Let me get in my schools. Let me meet people, because those people who are in schools, those influencers, those teachers, those faculty members, they have children that may be adults. They have children that may be cousins, brothers, sisters, whoever. Those high school seniors, they have brothers. They have, I don't know how many seniors I enlisted whose older brothers were doing nothing with their lives and ended up enlisting too. So, and like you said, the whole Marine Corps concept of recruiting duty stems from the high school community college program. And I'll be honest too, when I was a recruiter, I'll be real, man. Like, I was never in my schools, not because I couldn't be. It's just that so when I was in my AO, right, all the other recruiters were very good at getting seniors. So they were writing seniors, but nobody was writing grads to fix our shipping holes. So I was always on the hunt for grads that I could contract and ship next week. So I constantly had a quick turnaround. And in turn, my high school community college program was lack thereof. It wasn't there. So I didn't have that good relationship. And until like my second year, where I started getting, because I got moved around a lot too in between AOs, but I finally got a good AO and I started going into my schools a lot more. And there was this one school where I was told, hey, never go in there. There's no need for it. It's an hour and a half drive. It's useless. You'll never go there. Just don't even bother. Until one day I'm out there and I was in the area and my buddy Mo is like, yo, isn't it Mast like 10 minutes away? And I was like, oh yeah, it is. He's like, yo, let's go. He's like, let's go by. He's like, you're in the area. Let's just go by. He's like, you've never been there. And at this point, I've been on the duty for 2.5 years and I had never been to the school. So I walk in, and it's a military school. It's an NROTC specific school. And I walk in, and the Navy the just this normal civilian is like, oh my God, the Marines are here. She's like, we haven't seen you guys in like 3 years. How have you been? And I'm just like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, we haven't seen a Marine Corps recruiter in years. She's like, we thought you guys forgot about us. So then she's like, oh, the commander's going to love to see you. So she brings me down to the ROTC room. I meet the commander. And the commander's like, hey, I have two students that literally exact words. Hey, I have two students that want to join the Marine Corps. Give me 1 second. She calls over the intercom to her two other classes. These two young men walk in, literally within after parents and everything. One kid was a same day interview. He became an NWA the same day. I met with parents the same night. Contracted on Monday. The other kid was his friend who also wanted to join the Marine Corps, and I got PCs from mom the following week because he wanted to talk to the Navy first. But long story short, after 3 years of not walking into the school, I walk in and within 2 weeks I have two contracts from the school. And I had allowed somebody else's perception of my AO to tell me, oh, never go there. And somebody said on the Facebook page today, because you brought this up and we're talking about it. Somebody in the group had said, what recommendations do you have about working out at school, helping with sports at high schools? And then somebody commented and was like, don't waste your time. Listen to me. If you have nowhere to work out, get in touch with the gym. They will let you work out in gym classes that depending on the school. But one of the ways that I got into I had a priority 3 school that I ended up making a priority 1 by the time I left. They would never let us in the school. I found out that this guy, Sergeant Jennings, who I deployed with to Afghanistan, graduated from that school. And he was great friends with the high school coach of the football team because they were high school seniors together and they grew up together. So now I use that outside source to meet the head coach of this football team. And then he got me in the school. And then I started doing workouts with the football team. We started posting them on Instagram. And then other schools saw us tagging Raritan High School football team. And then other schools wanted us to come and do leadership talks and all this stuff. And then that got us out into when we were out ACing, people would see my face and they'd be like, "Oh, you were at my school, bro. That was a dope talk." Da 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 da. And like my boy Durkee, talking about mental health. He would keep his skateboard in his trunk of his Gov, and whenever he was out ACing, he would, if he saw a skate park, he'd hop over to the skate park and he would skate. And he would just do some ollies, do some stuff, like joking around, whatever. And he wouldn't even recruit kids or talk to kids about recruiting duty. And he became known as, hey, that's the Marine that skates. And it just became this thing in the community in our AO that people knew us. And that's the thing, man, is that people say, oh, this and this and this doesn't work. And it's like, but you're not even doing it. Like, you don't know that it doesn't work because you're not doing it. You say that, hey, the Marine Corps is not doing well because of all these different things. Okay, but are you in your schools? Are you scrubbing your list? Are you going into the school every day or twice a week with your list and scrubbing names off of it? Are you finding these people and asking the counselors about it? So it's very important that you're doing that, man, and it's awesome that you're doing it. What other types of things are you realizing as you grow? And another thing too that you keep saying is that, hey, I'm new with this, bro. That's perfectly fine, bro, and that's good that you identify that. But it's important that you be confident in what you're doing because you're growing as you're doing it. So it's completely fine because you're going to stumble, you're going to learn. So what are some of the other things that you've learned, in the past year that you're kind of adding to that battle rhythm?
Well, one thing to kind of go off of that too, Benny, is with schools, I do hear a lot of people saying that their schools refuse to let them in.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, yeah, there is some schools out there who are definitely like, no, like screw the military.
Hmm.
But you got to understand, like most of these schools, if you go on the website, the teacher's point of contact is on there. And
Hmm.
I do a thing with like, maybe there's only literally one of my schools, the principals love me. The other one I have like a weird relationship with. So I just bypass them and I just go talk to the teachers, which actually got me into one of the wrestling team at my one of my P1 schools. And I literally once a week I go there, I wrestle with the students, and it is generating a lot of business. I have a guy working right now for a scholarship, the intercollegiate
Mm.
scholarship, and I've worked 3 kids out of there and working another one, all because like I go there, I wrestle with them. I talk with them and give them opportunities, and it actually opens me up to a lot of things, like which is crazy. There was a entry to early Super 32 tournament, which is like if you top four boys and girls win the tournament. They get to go to one of the biggest tournaments, the top 32 kids in the country. Um, and the coach told me about it. I was like, hey, one of these schools, that's another recruiter in my office is AO. Like, there's a tournament, come by. We're just gonna be at so and so school. And I was like, all right, I'll go there and come support your team. And I told the recruiter there because I'm not a shady fucking recruiter. Like I'm gonna
Yeah, of course.
if there's I'm not gonna go to school without him telling us, like, hey man, you're gonna come with me because I know you've been trying to talk to the coach anyway, so you're gonna come with
Mhm.
me. So we had a memorial run, which was super dope too. I loved it. And after that, we shot over to the school, and then I was coaching. He set up a table, and I didn't know this, which I should have as a wrestler, but the tournament had literally the entire state, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and parts of Arizona competing at this one tournament. It was like grad and senior central, and I literally was like, hey man, like this is crazy. So like I'm like looking up kids like close in our area that are grads, and I was like talking to a bunch of kids, and then he got in there, he set up with a coach, and he got like a bunch of same day appointments, and I was like, this is crazy. Like me just actually inserting myself with a team
Yeah.
that I know opened me up
Yeah.
to all these opportunities. And now he's
Yep.
like, yeah, we got more tournaments going on to the rest of Houston. Come
Hmm.
out and support. And it's like, like this is an awesome opportunity that I actually get to meet more people and put the Marine
Hmm.
Corps image out there. Because when often do you hear a Marine Corps recruiter comes in and trains with the wrestling team?
No,
Uh,
exactly, and that's what's so important about it, man. Is that like nobody looks at nobody looks at what you're looking at. Your what you did, and you just brought it up, is that yes, it was about the individual, right? Hey, I got contracts, or hey, I got leads, right? But then you're talking about, hey, me talking to this teacher or this coach led to me being in another AO at another school. So now it trickled into another AO. Then it trickled into multiple states in the area and grads and seniors. And now that opened up. And this all started off by you going out of your way to look onto a website to look at your high school community college program and look for people's names who, if we think about this, those names are already supposed to be in Macris on the contact cards for the schools. But that's the thing about it, man, is a lot. And that's why when people say like that systematic recruiting doesn't work, no, you don't work. If you actually do what systematic recruiting is, if you actually follow MC3, if you actually use benefit tags the way that they were meant to be used, all of those things work. It's just that you're refusing to use the tools that you've been given to work, and you are doing that, and it's proving that the system isn't flawed. Like, I understand that maybe we're not where we need to be with the digital communication or whatever, but like when you look at people like yourself, you did something so simple that another recruiter wouldn't have done. Another recruiter who's just sitting in his office making mindless TCs because he has to hit 150 TCs today didn't go out there and do what you did. And that's why it's important to think outside the box. But you know what? I also think that a lot of that is attributed to you being in 0311. And that's just my I'm sorry, 0331, but like being in that 03 field, because in my opinion, I've never met an 03 on recruiting duty that was not a phenomenal recruiter. Because you guys, yes, while Marines should be able to think outside the box and Marines should be able to look at this and look at that, you guys uncover a lot more because of the different training and the different schools that you go to, and you guys, kind of like Motor T, hey, we're looking at IED lane training. We're looking at, hey, what's different here, what's different here, what's different in the train. So like in your position, in the amount of training that you've received in your 8 years in the Marine Corps, you've been taught to, hey, let's look for differences in the terrain. Let's look for differences in the community. Hey, what can I do differently? Hey, what can I notice differently from the populace, right? So what would you say as an O3 Marine in that field? How would you say that you contribute that to your success thus far on recruiting duty? Your year in, like what do you say?
I don't want to take away from all the other MOSs because at the end of the day, I have a lot of friends in other fields, and recruiting brings out the the Marine Corps amplifies everything about you, good or bad, and
Mm.
the recruiting duty amplifies that times two. So whether
Mm.
you are
Amen.
a shitty
Amen.
Marine or a fucking good Marine, it's gonna amplify that here. So I don't want to take away from the other MOSs, but for infantry wise, I got a buddy who's in what do you call it? Is in New Jersey. I could say his name because that's a private thing for him, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
a
yeah.
NCOIC out there. He's a sergeant leading an RSS, which is
Yes.
impressive
I
as
know who
is.
you're talking about. That's my man.
Yep, he's
Bro.
killing it out there.
Yep.
And he told me one thing when I came out here. He's like, "Look, dude, you're a fucking O3. I'm an O3. Like, just fucking go out there and do the Lord's work. Like, don't like just go hard charging like you would when your buddy rushing a lane or you're assaulting a support by fire. Just go out there and do it." And I do that. Like when I first came out here, obviously, as I find things that work, I was aggressive, but I adapted. I became humble, but I was still going out there. Like yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
got a mom that I call and say, hey, you ever thought about the opportunities for your son or daughter? And they say, hell no, my son's not joining. Well, I'm not going to be like, hey, screw you. I'm like, all right, maybe not be for him now, but it could be for him in the future. I call back later, right? I'm not going to be just shot down for it. I'm going to be continuing to do what I'm supposed to do. Which you talk about
Mm-hmm.
systematic recruiting, like a lot of recruiters hate it, but as you look into it, it's there for a reason. Like
Yeah.
follow ups are important. I've had a lot of follow ups come back for me, and all I had to do was
Yeah.
like, hey man, they may not be for you now, but it may be for you in the future. And then 30, 60, 90 days, I call them like, oh, you know what? I actually thought about it, and I was like,
Yeah.
crazy, it's fucking crazy
Yeah.
how it works that
Bro,
way.
and that's the thing, man, is that like when people say that systematic recruiting doesn't work, it's like, okay, systematic recruiting doesn't work because you're not making it work. It's kind of like if I have a toolkit or a toolbox and I pull out the wrong tool and I need a hammer and I go to hammer a nail, but I actually grab a wrench. It's like, could it do the job? Maybe, but realistically, it's not the right tool for the job. So if you're not using the tool of Macris to actually be systematic and you're not doing the follow-ups and you're not closing out these things, and listen, I'm not calling the kettle black because I will be completely honest. I don't know how many times I didn't follow up with people in my time on the duty, but I did the best that I could. I really did, and I always would hit people up. But like my boy Durkee would never. And I was the station commander. I was a recruiter for him, with him, and then I was the station commander. My boy Durkee would never put his stuff in the system, and I would literally at the end of every day, I'd have to be like, bro, put your packs in because you're gonna forget to follow up with them. I would have to literally remind him every day, put your packs in, you have to follow up with them. Sometimes I would forget to follow up with them. So guess what? On a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, when we didn't have anything for tomorrow, all I'd have to do is pick up his gov phone and just start calling every freaking number in the phone because he had them all saved, and he would put in there like it would be like redhead kid, broken leg, age 5, like, and that would be the kid's contact name. So I would call the kid and I would set the appointment, and he would always, and bro, I would pull contracts out of his gov phone, and I would just be like, bro, if you just put all of this into Macris and you put it on a pack card and you put SWAT and you put form and you actually just did this every time you spoke to somebody, you would get so many more contracts. But there's so many people that are getting lost in the shuffle because you don't put it in the system and you don't set up a follow up, you don't set an action date. Or like, how many times have you seen a senior recruiter forget about a kid and then you meet him and then the kid says to you, yeah, I was talking to Sergeant so and so, but he never hit me back. Or you call a kid that somebody else was supposed to call, and they're like, yeah, I was waiting on Sergeant so and so to call me, but he never called me back. Bro, there's contracts out there, and it happens, and that's why, like, when we talk about that systematic recruiting, it's like, bro, I understand that, like, and this is again, my opinion, but a lot of times when you hear 8412 speak, you don't want to listen because it's an 8412 speak. But if somebody else says it, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's kind of like when a friend of mine's like, hey, bro, you should do this. And I'm like, yeah. And then my wife looks at me and she's like, I told you to do that like 2 weeks ago, right? And then you're like, nah, no, you didn't. Like, that's, so that's what I'm saying. Like, take the time, be systematic, and it will be fruitful. Yeah, maybe it'll add a little bit more time to your day, but you're gonna get more at the end of it. What else are you doing? Like now that how has your plan changed? Like how has your battle rhythm changed from the beginning of you coming out here to this time? Because I feel like a lot of people, and you can speak to this because you're going through it right now, a lot of brand new recruiters, as soon as they hit B, we were talking about this before. As soon as that recruiter gets out of B or C, they come out and they're overwhelmed and they're worried that they're not going to figure it out, and they're worried that, oh my god, I don't have appointments, I don't have contracts, I don't have packs, I don't have this. How has that changed for you? How have you gone from that overwhelmed brand new recruiter to becoming, gathering your battle rhythm, gathering your plan? Like how has that worked out for you, and how did that kind of happen?
Well, one thing I would say, that's, you know, some recruiters don't have the luxury of this, and this is because how certain leaders are. But I have a pretty fucking good boss. I will say that he's the buffer, like a 7-2 IC is supposed to be between the recruiter and hire. He looks
Mm,
out for us, so he tells us, he like puts us on track. He caters to us in the way that we're supposed to bring mission for the RSS. So a lot of it is in your 7-2 IC too, because he is the buffer and he aids you. Obviously, he's on a mission letter for the office, not for himself, but his job is to help push that C to C chain, and my boss does that a lot, and he actually assists with us. But one thing that does has changed besides having a good boss for me was like small little things like. For me, was being involved in my schools. At first, when I got there, the stress was like just TC, 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 TC. And a lot of these times, these kids, like, yeah, they may just give you the saying, yeah, it sounds interesting, but they don't fucking want to talk to you. But when you see them in person, it's a whole different demeanor. And I've caught a lot of kids that I've talked to on the phone who kind of gave me like the runaround, but then I'm seeing them in person and it's a whole different demeanor. Not because like, I got cauliflower ears and I'm like, tatted up and I come see them and just say like, what's up? It's just like, hey man, like, I'm looking to change your life. And then they just actually like open up to me, which, being in my school is for me, it's what's helped. Like, you know, obviously you got to prospect. You have to 100% always have to prospect. You got to keep your bucket full. You got to continue being like active in your prospecting activity. But a face-to-face confrontation goes a long way, especially when you're trying to give them something that could change their life. And that's happened to me a lot, and that's why I continue to live in my schools where I go there the majority of my day, or I'm in there and I'm talking to people. And I think for new recruiters, like don't be so afraid of abandoning, not abandoning, but letting go of the computer for a second and going out there and meeting people. Because
mm-hmm.
when people will put a face to something more than they will put a conversation over the phone to something. Like
Yeah.
100%. A lot of them will remember you. Like I've actually literally, it's kind of crazy how it is, but one of my schools, Dobie, a lot of the grads that happened in 2022, when I talked to them, like, oh, I remember you. You're the really cool dude with the cauliflower ears. And then they're like, maybe you should teach me jujitsu sometime. Obviously, I can't do that, right? But they remember me, and then like we build off of there, as opposed to like, no, I don't know you. I'm not interested in the military. I don't even know who you are. Uh, that helps me because for me personally, which took me a while to understand, I'm a late bloomer in terms of like talking to people. I literally like if you look at me from middle school and high school, dude, I was like that long haired dude, would wear a hoodie, wearing weird chucks. Like, I see a girl, I'd fucking run the other distance.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like
yeah.
now, I hate the Marine Corps opened me up where I literally can like talk to millions of people, and I fucking love it. And that's why I'm
Yeah.
so involved in my schools because I will literally see a teacher that I know is like, hey, like let me take your whole class and talk to them. And that's carried a long way because now when I have these follow ups when I'm working on my working file, I actually can like build a general conversation and then tailor to what their needs or wants are and bring them in for an appointment. And that helps me a lot, especially with a lot of recruiters. I know they get overwhelmed, like an OCD thing for me that I was talking about. Like, um, a lot of what works for me is, just learn to not take things so seriously. I'll have kids on here that, will tell me fuck off and I don't worry about it. Like I'll follow up later. But then I have kids who like I get a slight interest in, I save their contact in my phone and then it reminds me to like talk to them. Like you said, like you have a kid that is down as fuck to go, but you just forgot about them. If I get a kid that has some sort of committing out of them, I save them in my Gov phone. so that, I can look through as I'm doing my weekly contacts, and I could just like hit them up, like, hey man, like what's going on? But people who like I generally just don't want anything to do with me, I let my Chris handle that. So I don't like, I go on there, I'll look at the pack, and they'll tell me what I need to talk to them about. But if I have a kid who I have a genuine relationship with and I understand them, and they give me some sort of committing, I save them on my phone so that when I go through my contacts, it's like, oh, I remember this dude. He was kind of about it. I'm gonna follow up with them, see how life is going with them.
Hmm. So the only advice that I'm going to give is, because it's irking me, is even though you're doing, and this is the same thing Durkee was doing, don't keep some people in your gov and some people in Chris. You gotta, because you're screwing yourself over when it comes to your numbers later on. And
Yeah,
you're screwing yourself over because, yes, you think that you have this system down pat, but this is why McChris was created, for you to remind yourself, instead of you doing your weekly comments later on in the week, it's to remind yourself, hey, text this kid, hey, text this kid, hey, what was the last thing I told? And also it's also not about you. You got to remember, when you get off the duty, your phone is not going to necessarily go to the recruiter in your AO. It can go to another AO. So at that point, those contacts mean nothing to somebody in across Houston. But that working file stays in that AO. So this isn't just about us right now. It's about the future of Marine Corps recruiting duty. And that's why it's
yeah,
important to keep McChris filled, and that we're doing it right. And then on top of that, what it also is doing for you is it's just keeping you accountable. Because say, you know what, say your ARI comes and visits and they're like, hey, who have you been talking to lately? Hey, who was the last person you were talking to? Hey, who's somebody that you're working, somebody that you've been going back and forth with? Who's somebody that you can get in for right now? Like if I said right now to you as an ARI, hey, who can you get in the office right now as an appointment? There's probably a couple of people in your phone that you're like, you know what, I could probably get that kid to be an appointment, right? Like you're like, I
yeah,
could probably do that, right? So now the problem is that if you go and you grab your Gov phone, the first thing that ARI is going to ask you is, hey, show me him and McChris. And then you're going to go to McChris and you're going to look that kid up in the system. And 9 times out of 10, that kid's not even a pack card, or he's not even in the system. And now someone's going to say, hey, you're not scrubbing your list properly. Hey, and now, mind you, this isn't me saying this because I'm trying to get you out of a bind. This is me saying this because it's the right thing to do. This is how we use McChris the right way. And this is how we use McChris to actually be systematic. And it's also how you just make your life that much easier. Like that's literally what it is, man, is that like everything that I heard about, and when you look at things, it's like, okay, you know what? That does make sense, because now you're able to keep because I even do this, believe it or not, I even do this in my civilian job. In my civilian job, we have a process just like McChris, and I have to put in their detailed notes. Hey, spoke to this person about this, because you're not remembering everything, man. And like, and think about it, like if you're going off of some kids, so let's say it's John. So you've been talking to John for a couple of months. In order for you to remember, now you got to start scrolling through this conversation. You got to find them in your phone. Then you got to start, okay, oh, yeah, his grandma died, da da da. If you just keep doing those every once or twice a week, weekly contacts, and you just put it in the system, hey, grandma passed away, reach back out and see how's family doing. Now you're keeping this up, and now you also got to understand too, and this will be the last thing I say on it, but it's very important, is that if God forbid something were to happen to you, or if you get off the duty and somebody comes into your AO, I should be able to look up in the system Nick Platt, and then I should be able to say, oh, okay, hey, was committed at this point, but then he, kind of fell off because his grandma died, and then boom, this happened, and then oh, Sergeant so and so talked to him here, and now there's a history, and now I can call him and be like, hey man, I noticed that you were talking to Sergeant so and so a while back. And, he has a lot of stuff down here. He says that, he actually interviewed you, and you were going to be committed, but then this happened with your family. And now what does that do for the kid? It shows that kid that the Marine Corps concept cares about him and that you cared enough to
Mm.
follow up with him just to see how everything's doing. But now you don't get that same thing out of just looking at your Gov phone.
Yeah, yeah, that Marine Corps concept thing. That's I like how you bring that in, because then like it's picking back up for the next recruiter. I kind
Yeah.
of I mean I don't want to throw names out there, but it was kind of a hard transition for me because some of the packs I had they had nothing for me, so it was like starting fresh for me. So I do
Yeah, but
understand that
see,
part.
but hold on. So you just said when I got here, some of my packs were hard. I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And now what are you doing?
I'm
Doing
having
the
to like
same thing.
rekindle that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But no,
yeah.
but what are
Well,
you doing
yeah,
now? You're doing the same thing. You have stuff in your phone that's not making it into Chris, that's not making, you know what I mean? And again, this is me just saying, like, listen, you're already doing great. You're already doing great things. You're writing twos. You have more going on deck. Okay. Well, if that's how you're working it, I'm not trying to take away from what you're doing because it's working. But if you can just tighten it up a little bit, it's gonna work that much more.
yeah,
And then
for sure.
again, when that new recruiter comes in and maybe you become a station commander or whatever happens in the future, I don't know. But like at that point, that person can look at this person's pack and be like, oh, okay, this is all of what's going on. And they can see that and it's seamless. And then you're not losing kids. And that's the thing is that the kids are being lost in the shuffle. There's contracts sitting out there that somebody just never called back.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I've even had a what do you call it? I'll even look through some expired packs too and like follow up on like old. But I've seen some good
Mm-hmm.
business out there. Some people just forgot. I've actually called
Bro,
one dude.
I put a kid in the Marine Corps. Never forget this shit. This kid's one of my favorite people in the Marine Corps. I didn't put him in the Marine Corps, but I should have. So his name is Robbie McCann. So me and my boy Arana were walking through the mall. I see Robbie McCann. I stop him. I AC him. I interview. I literally pack him everything. Kid's down to join the Marine Corps. I set the appointment for tomorrow. Okay. I didn't save his phone number.
Oh, fuck.
So I never followed up with him. Right. A year later, kid's sitting in my office and he's sitting down with another recruiter, Staff Sergeant Romaine. And I look at the kid and I'm like, bro, I know you. And this is after the kid just joined, has his Poolie t-shirt, has his Poolie t-shirt and everything. And he goes, yes. He goes, you're supposed to be my recruiter. And I was like, what? He goes, I met you last year in the mall. I had an interview with you, but you never showed up to the office. I kept calling your phone, but you never answered. And you were supposed to be my recruiter. And he's like, you never called me and you never met me at the office. And he goes, a year later, I bumped into Sergeant Romaine and here I am. And I'm like, bro, like I was supposed to put this dude in the Marine a year later. He never, and that's the thing, bro, is that stuff like that happens because you're so busy thinking about everything else. There's so much going on recruiting duty. There's your wife, your family. There's so much going on, and you have this tool that you're just not using to the best of your ability.
Yeah, this it does get overwhelming a lot because there's a lot of things like playing in. Like I have this.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird because a lot of recruiters are going to be like, I want time to go by faster, but sometimes just because of like how productive I can be, and I get OCD like quick when I'm on my day, and it's like, well, I wish there's some more time so I can accommodate every single thing that I need to knock out in a day. It's kind of like
Yeah.
weird. It's like a conflict of interest. Like you want more time, you want time to go by faster, but you also want to knock out every single thing so you don't miss anything. Because there's been a couple of
Mm-hmm.
times like I had to just like last minute cancel like class talks or appointments just because like I was overwhelmed with some other things and I felt like shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also, that's when and that's a whole other discussion, but the team and everybody working together and hey, let's do this, and that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But hey, well, we've been going for about an hour. I love this conversation. We're definitely gonna have to do another episode because I really want to continue to do episodes with you as you persist through the duty. This way people can see, hey, this episode was at your 1 year mark or right about just getting done with your MOJT. And hey, this is where I'm at a couple months from now. because it just shows the growth in your battle rhythm as opposed to now. And then your battle rhythm is going to change during the winter. Your battle rhythm is going to change during, well, I guess not really, because in Houston it's all the same all year round.
Yeah,
Right? I don't know.
people get scared here at 20 degrees.
So,
It's
but
fucking
yeah,
weird.
so battle rhythms are going to change. But hey, so for everybody else, just kind of end it with, where can we find you? How can we get a hold of you? And where can we learn more about the page? Learn more about what you're doing, and any last words that you have for anybody that you want to throw out there, and then we'll end it right there.
Okay, so if you guys want to follow my page, and especially for the O3s out there who want to learn more tactics, TTPs, SOPs, it's doctrinally sound, doctrinally underscore sound. So DOCTRINALLY underscore sound. I'm on there quite a lot. I'm very active. I've been meaning to post another post here soon. So, and if you got requests, DM me. I will literally research it and put it out there for you, so you have something to reference. And then of course my recruiting page is Sergeant SGT underscore Roan underscore USMC. So maybe if you want to reach out, or for people who listen to this and have thought about enlisting in the Houston area, especially in like towards like the Galveston area, hit me up. That's me. And then for people who are coming out here around like underneath like your 1 year mark, around my mark, just keep grinding. It sucks. We're all going through the same thing. Literally just keep prospecting, keep doing it, keep your head up, one foot in front of the other, just keep going. Because at some point, everything does come into an end. One thing that I used when I was a junior Marine, that one of my seniors told me, that stuck with me, that I'm using in this duty. It sounds very cliche, but if you just really listen to it and apply it to yourself, it works. Is do what you're told, and know your job to the best of your ability. If you're told to prospect, fucking prospect, and know how to do it like no other. I know there's like a hate and discontent for 84 tolls out there, but a lot of them, especially in Houston, they have some good stuff. I've learned quite a bit of stuff from them for my year out here, and I'm trying to apply it. I'm really trying to apply it out there. So big shout out to my boss. Obviously, I know he's going through a moment right now, but he's definitely someone I look up to, because he definitely brings in the whole team concept for us, and I think that's why we're so successful at ours is favorite, because he actually gives a shit, and he
Amen.
actually wants us to fucking thrive. So
Amen,
shout out
man.
to Tiz.
And
You keep
yes,
killing it,
sir.
man. I really appreciate what he does. I know he's going through an injury right now, but
Mm,
if it weren't for him, I wouldn't say ours favorite wouldn't be bad, but he definitely brings the whole team concept, and we have a really tight knit group of recruiters. And then for RS Houston, I'm sure Sergeant Major's watching this, but RS Houston is actually a good place. I know it may get some bad reps every now and then from whatever I hear out there, but we're a powerhouse for a reason, because we all give a shit, and we're in a pretty big area of the country. And I think at the end of the day, when we meet each other, all hands, like we're all just a team. And I really appreciate
amen.
working with everybody here. But a bunch of
Amen,
good
brother.
guys and girls.
Yes, sir. And hey, shout out to Sergeant Major Cab. He was on here earlier talking about how great of a Marine and a great dude you are. And shout out to him, man, for everything that he's doing out there. Because I understand from many people that he's doing a great job as an RS Sergeant Major, and also just kind of bringing that whole team aspect, and as well as the CO. So just thank you for those command members that are really bringing you guys together to make a mission out there and do everything, especially in the Marine Corps right now, where MICRIC is not doing too great. So the fact that you guys are still killing it out there while facing adversity is amazing. I just want to thank you so much, Joshua. Thank you so much, man. Thank you to your wife. Thank you to your family. Thank you to her for what she's allowing you to do on the duty, because even as a Marine, she understands what you're doing for the Marine Corps. And a lot of times when we're on the duty, we forget about how important our job is as Marine Corps recruiters. So I just want to take the moment to say thank you, man, for everything that you're doing for the next generation of Marines. And have a good rest of the night. Go enjoy some time with your family, and we will talk again soon, man. Out.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, later, bro.
Yep.